Hey, what is up everyone? Welcome back to another review, and today I'm going to be taking a look at this right here, which is kind of exciting. This right here is the renewal of 30-minute missions, in a way, sort of. This right here is the 30-minute missions IGLIGHT 01, and as it says on the side of the box right here, this is a 30-minute mission starter kit, which is a very interesting concept. Now, we all love 30-minute missions. They're like Mecha Lego. They're modular kits that you can use all the parts in all the sort of ways that you want to. Build up a whole bunch into crazy fun things, or just build the actual units as they are. You don't have to use legs as legs, arms as arms, you can just do whatever the hell you want. And that's what is so fun. So a brand new renewal style kit has got me super excited. It isn't really all that new. It's been around for a month or two now. I've been meaning to get around to it, and today is that day. Anyway, I got this right here through Hobby Link Japan. Link is down there in the description if you want to check that out or get yourself some 30-minute missions kits. But as for right now, let's get this thing unboxed. So taking a little bit of a look at the box, as it says right here, this is, well, you can pull it off the runners like with entry grade model kits. The build, I assume, is as simple as we would have seen before. The rest of the box is laid out the usual way that we see. You do not need glue, you do not need tools, you do not need anything in the colors of the plastic, or as you're going to be seeing right here on the box. There's an image of what we'll be seeing in here. These have always been fairly simplistic kits, so it seems like they may have simplified it a little bit more. It says here, colorful results can be enjoyed by simply assembling parts. That's always great. Common joints shared throughout the series are incorporated. Option parts can be freely attached. Packed with gimmicks that can be easily enjoyed, and it says each part is flexible, movable, and can be posed in a variety of poses. As for the weapons in here, 2 Roy support mechas are included. They also become weapons for the arms. And new movable 3mm joints are built into the arms. That looks pretty cool anyway. Inside of this box, after busting it open, we've got 1 bag of runners. So there's not a whole lot to this actual kit, but we'll see what sort of payoff we get from it. Next up then in here we've got the manual. In the usual kind of way, this is just kind of a fold out pamphlet. A lot of information about multiple other kits that are available, multiple different option sets as well, and all the information about the IGLIGHT unit is around on this side. There's usually a 1-page assembly guide in here somewhere. Oh, there are some option sets that are designed for this, including a full armor set. And maybe I'm missing it somewhere, but I'm not seeing a 1-page build guide for this. Maybe it's a little bit more complex. Let's find out. Busting open the Oni bag of runners, and it seems like we do have 3 in here. That's the gray runner C. Whoa, the parts are so easy to remove, it's jumping right off. We've got the white runner B and the white runner A. Actually, should I say multicolored runner A. Lots of nice colors on here. So we have a nice kind of bluish purple. We've got white, gray, and a couple of clear green parts in here, which is a nice touch. I actually found this super recently, and I'm surprised it's held up so well. I kept this in the garage, and it's made out of paper, and the garage is a little bit on the damp side, and this is held up nicely. In case you don't know what this is a little stand that came included with the Master Grade Extreme Strike Freedom Gundam. It's just cardboard, but again, it's held up so nicely. I'm going to be using this today, and it basically just holds your plastic upright just like so. I never thought this would actually last or stand the test of time, but it kind of has. So the instructions inside this box say you don't have to use any tools, so who am I to argue with that, so I'm not going to use any. So starting with the legs, I need B13, and apparently you can just pull it right on off like so. I actually never like doing this at all, because it does sometimes leave tiny little nubs on your kit. They don't really seem all that bad, and if you had a little bit of a file, that would deal with that quickly. So whoosh forward in time a little bit, and here's 1 leg built, and all I can say is I am super impressed. So there is the bend at the knee, so as you can see, it is a simple design. You can see into some of the actual aspects when it is moving around. But the actual build on this is incredibly simple. Basically, you just pull everything off the runner, you have a tiny little pile of what, well, is going to be building the particular part of the unit you're going to be building, and then you just attach everything together, and it is so simple. The first build was done in seconds. Now, again, building like this is not entirely without its downsides. As you can see, I do have some wicked nubs on some of the actual grey parts especially. Most of the time though, they're actually hidden up quite well and you don't really see them. The lighter 2 colors aren't really nubbing up as much as the actual grey does, and it's hidden away for the most part. For example, that one most of the time is tucked in a way like that. So you can kind of get away with this and then just clean up the visible parts afterwards. That's my plan. Anyway, popping this together is super simple. I mean, the upper leg is just 2 parts. That's all. The lower leg here, that is also just 2 parts. Again, attached together, just like so. The knee joint, also just 2 parts. That is the gray and a little bit of color. I do recommend clean up that little nub there though. I mean, you just rub the shit out of it with your nail. That's pretty much all you have to do. Foot, also just made out of 2 parts. Simple as that. And the hip joint is your usual kind of Bandai gunpla joint. That's just 2 parts that attach together, just like so. The final assembly is just as simple as the rest. So it's C-clip joints. They click together nicely, good and strong. Same with the lower leg, just pops in like so. Clicks into place. Hip joint pops in up top. Almost forgot this here, ankle joint. It's a ball joint in the bottom, C-clip up top. And there we go, leg complete. Super simple and looking good. Okay, continuing on again, I'm not using any tools for this build. I'm just yanking the parts right off the runner like the kit says that you can do. Again, it is causing a little bit of nubbing up, but nothing really all that bad. Again, simple assembly. It's just 3 main parts and 2 joints for the waist. So that bit, that rear bit, and then the usual kind of 30-minute missions, almost crank looking hip joints that just attach in like so. So these can drop down with the simplest little mechanism. Basically, they can drop down like that. But yeah, besides the hips, no extra movement on here. C-clips on the sides. Nice and impressive. Alright, so we're blasting on along to the torso again. Just pulling bits off. 2, 3, 4. One good thing is, even though we've got similar looking parts, a lot of these are mirrored. So left and right for these particular aspects, which look like the shoulder joints, they're still the same piece. So it doesn't matter which one you use here, you're not going to get confused when ripping these bits off. We finally get a little bit of that clear green. It does feel good and, well, durable. Sometimes clear parts or clear pieces can be a little bit delicate. That's the only piece we need off A. And from C right here, all we need is the neck. So there really isn't too many parts, is there? What is that? 5 parts? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 parts to the torso. This part just attaches into the back right here. So we have clear parts coming from underneath. Neck joint attaches in like so. Front attaches on like that. And then these shoulder segments seem to C-clip in from the side like that. That is definitely an interesting design. So far so good. Still getting some little knobs, but I will clean anything visible up at the end. So it turns out I'm not done. I just didn't turn the page. So there is a bunch more. There is this big old piece right here and these little waist segments right here. The waist parts just connect together like that, pop up from underneath like that. And we do have the usual kind of gunpla backpack adapter back here, and you just attach that one in just like so. Now it's complete. So next up in here is the arms, and this is the arm complete. This again is super impressive. So a simple bend at the elbow. Again, you can't see into the inner joints, but it really is this kind of little forearm turning aspect that is just such a cool addition. It's just a simple C-clip joint inside, but overall very nice. I mean, building these is, again, just as simple as we would have seen before. You just throw a whole bunch of bits together. There isn't even 2 parts to the upper arm. It just is that simple. Also, this is the first time where things get a little bit asymmetrical. Up at the shoulders, the left and the right shoulder, as well as the hands, are different from each other, as you'd expect from a left and right hand. The shoulder joint is a 2-point joint. We've got a ball joint up top and a peg below. The upper arm is one piece in gray, just attaches on via a peg. The forearm on this, which I think is absolutely awesome, is just 3 pieces. So these 2 colored parts which sandwich together, then around. On the back we do have this little wheel-esque part that attaches in, which has a moving hard point, so that is a cool touch. Elbow joint is just a simple C-clip, so it attaches on like that. The shoulders are asymmetrical like I mentioned, so the white segment is what points to the front. Usual 30-minute missions shoulder clippy part in here. Then you just pop on the hand. I will mention this is an all-encompassing, or should I say all-encompassing hand, like you would see on an entry-grade Gundam. This will limit some weapons that it can work with, because you can't take off the back. If there's any kind of lip or pommel or anything like that at the bottom of a handle, it won't be able to attach into this hand. But of course you could just throw another 30-minute missions X-Max hand onto it if you wanted to. So there's the shoulder on, and again, impressive, especially this pivoting hardpoint. That is cool. Next up, we've got the head. We have a very nice clear piece which slots on in like so to the front. Some of that nice purple round back attaching on like so. And finally, we do have a little bit of white which slots into the clear piece, which is a very nice touch on breaking that up and making it look like a legit mecha head. That is cool. They've come a long way since the Alto. So yeah, that is pretty much everything to the mech itself. Let's just see what the final assembly is like, and I'm going to be starting from the legs up. So far it's nice and solid. Everything is popping together reasonably well so far. Sometimes I wonder if I've popped things on backwards, which it looks like right now that I have. All right, now with that rectified, on with the torso, on with the shoulders. Oh, already lost a shoulder. The armor on the shoulders does clash a little bit so far by the way that it sticks out in the front. So that is already a little bit on the awkward side. Didn't lose that one. And finally then, on with the head. And finally, there we go. There is the IGLIGHT complete. And one of my biggest issues with 30-minute missions a lot of the time is out of box, they never really look like a serious mecha. At least a lot of the older designs didn't. They kind of look like almost polygonal or kind of stripped down variants of various Gundam mobile suits. But this one right here, this one's pretty damn cool. Wonder what the articulation's actually like on this. And so far, it's feeling like it's not too bad. Overall, for what's considered a beginner kit, this is nice. Alright, so ripping the last of the parts off the runners, it's time for the included weaponry. So apparently we've got a weapon as well as a Roy. So let's see how that works out. So we've got two halves to this particular rifle-looking segment right here. They just attach together like so. We've got something that looks like a handle, which attaches in underneath via a C-clip. And what looks like a little bit of a four-leggy type majig attaches onto the back, just like so. This one's just a little four-leggy piece and a bit that attaches in like so. So it just kind of looks like this and attaches into the rear of the arm. So that's it for the weaponry. So they're kind of similar looking and a little bit on the basic side. Not really as cool as you'd see in some of the option sets. So finally, there's what the 30-minute missions IGLIGHT looks like out of the box, thrown together. And I mean with absolutely zero effort, just torn off the runners and slapped together. And I have to say, I am absolutely impressed. They've really finally made these out-of-box builds look a little bit more dynamic than they used to look. This looks like a serious mecha. The only thing that kind of makes it look 30-minute missions is that classic, almost original Alto kind of color scheme, but besides that, this is a nice looking mecha. Of course, there are a couple of elements on it that do make it look a little bit more model kitty. There's a lot more visible joints and stuff on this simpler version than some of the older ones, but overall, again, dynamic, great proportions, and a really cool mech design. Again, give this a custom color scheme, and it will blend in very, very nicely with stuff like gunpla. So yeah, jumping on in for a little bit of a closer look, and as you can see, it looks kind of nice. It does have the kind of feeling in the hand that you do get with a lot of 30-minute missions, especially the kind of springy-ish hips. It's not going to lose any kind of pose on you, but overall, the structural integrity of these kits isn't as strong as something as gunpla. Getting in a little bit closer there, definitely the star of the show in this kit is the nice clear part. So we've some in the top of the head, they run on through to the face section, and the addition of actual clear parts in the chest is quite premium for what is considered a, well, starter kit. The design of the overall structure of this looks great. We've got lots of little pen lining opportunities in there, a little bit of a cockpit recess section. The shoulders, the kind of greebles and armor plates just look so nice. The split of color is a nice touch, and overall it does have a more actual cool mecha look to it than you would normally see from one of these kits. Again, nice design in the upper arm, the forearm looking good and powerful. We've got some recessed sections again with a little bit of a Gundam Age sort of vibe, or a giant cannon from Gundam UC feeling to the crotch and the chest. I guess we've got those cannons in Seed too. We do have a lot of the 3mm holes all over the shop. That is normal for this line. You can get little plugs for plugging them up, but they're not too badly kind of placed in this kit. Again, the torso doesn't have anything like that, so it still maintains that kind of serious mecha kind of look. The leg design is very, very nice. It kind of moves backwards into an almost reverse limb look, while at the same time being just a standard pair of legs. The feet are nicely designed too, some white come through as part of the build. Looks a little better than you'd normally see in some 30-minute missions kits. However, when you do bend some of the knees and joints and stuff, you do see into what it is designed as, and that is a kit that is simple to put together with a lot of C-clip joints in it. But overall, again, impressive looking, no doubt. Jumping on into the size comparison, and just in case you're wondering how big one of these guys is compared to some gunpla, there it is beside the high-grade Oryx 78-2 Revive and the high-grade Gundam Mark II Revive, your standard size Gundams. So it is and around almost the same height, a little bit shorter, and definitely a lot skinnier than them. Grabbing a couple of random kits, there's the high-grade Strike Freedom, high-grade Gundam Barbatos, high-grade Gundam Ariel, and the high-grade G-Quax. So jumping now into the accessories, and here's everything that comes with the IGLIGHT. So it's not a whole lot, it's just 2 Roy, a shield Roy, as well as a rifle style Roy. Besides that, nothing else included, no optional hands, nothing like that. So just like I mentioned during the build, the hands on this kit are set in place, so the back cannot be removed, they're all encompassing, which will limit what can be attached in. If I'm not mistaken, the vast majority of 30-minute mission stuff should work, but it will limit the compatibility with Gunpla. And speaking of which, I'm pretty sure the hands I have on this RX-78-2 right here are from the sold separately optional hand kits. These do come in round fingers or square fingers, and each box contains 3 sizes. So I assume Bandai is gonna keep all the wrists the same on these kits. So just in case you are shopping around for optional hands, just testing if they do work. And yeah, this size might be a little bit big for the X-Mac itself, and the color is slightly off, but these will definitely work and work well. You just use a smaller set of hands. Sold separately, of course. So when it comes to the equipment that's actually included in here, first off we've got this. This is a rifle style Roy. In case you don't know what a Roy is, in the particular 30-minute missions universe, they have basically little AI mecha dudes that help them out in combat situations. So that's pretty much it. This works as a weapon and a little AI combat buddy. So when it does come to what this thing right here can do, it does have a little bit of a transforming mechanism. That's to turn into a little turret just like so. So you can just pop it on the ground and it can be like pew 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 like that. Or I can swap into the actual fireable, holdable mode, which has a handle pointing down like so. Popping it into the hand is as simple as you'd expect it to be. Get your X-Mac into a little bit of a shooting pose, slot that down into the hand like so, and there you go, there it is, holding onto its AI-powered rifle little guy. At this point, it is time to get this kit up into the air. The usual kind of 3mm hole down there in the crotch section, so that means you're gonna need a stand. The stand I usually use is this one right here. You guys ask me every single time I use it, what is it? This is Good Smile Company's Simple Stand. 3 of these are about €12 or $1. You don't have to do any kind of assembly, and we've got screws for tightening them up. They are my favorite thing to display as well as play with 1/44th scale kits because they're just so simple, they're to the point, they're nice and strong, and they don't have too much bounce to them. When I'm filming, sometimes when I'm rotating some kits, on some action bases, they can, well, vibrate a whole lot. These aren't the most vibrating. There's a little bit of a wiggle, but not a crazy amount. Not like Bandai's ones. Also, I will mention Bandai's action bases, the new ones. I'm not sure if they're the 6s and 7s. The plastic they're made of is just so likely to break. They're only really useful for posing once. If you move them around a lot, they can break. Overall, when you do get the IGLIGHT here up on a stand, with the weapon attached, this is an incredibly dynamic looking kit. As far as 30-minute missions go, I don't think I've ever gotten one to just pose up so nicely, so quickly. They've definitely taken a lot of kind of ideas from various different Gundam model kits and Gundam designs to kind of get it to that point where it has that nice dynamic nature. AKA it's got wide shoulders, aka the combination of wide shoulders, tiny waist, and some dynamic legs to get it looking crazy cool up in the air. So the next Roy we have in here, aka AI powered friendly bot, this one right here is the shield version. So when it is just attached onto the mecha itself, it is a shield. When it's running around the ground, I guess it's just a shield as well. It's not going to be shielding much besides, I guess, the mecha's shins, unless it can fly as well. In that case, I guess it can help out a bit more. Overall, the design is simple, it's just 2 parts. You can see this mainly is designed as a shield / claw from the back of the arm, and the kind of Roy aspect was definitely a little bit of an afterthought. Around on the rear side of this, it is a little bit on the hollow side, as you can see, which isn't the most impressive, but again, if that's pressed against the arm, we mightn't be seeing that. I guess we'll find out. Okay, so now it's time to get this attached onto the rear of the arm. As you can see, the rear of the arm right here is that cool little aspect with the moving hard point. So yeah, this is the hard point that can move down and up just like so. So you can get the shield basically wherever you want it once it's attached. Attaching is just a case of popping the peg on into the hole like so. And that right there is what the claw, like Roy is like attached. Again, it is very dynamic. It's pretty cool. It does cover up, well, most of the hollow parts. If you look in from underneath, you're going to see them, but it's not as noticeable when it is attached. Of course, this can rotate onto the top of the arm like so. So of course when this is attached down, you're able to move it up to the top or down to the bottom, which is really nice. And of course that nice little hard point will work absolutely fantastically with other available 30-minute missions accessories, but it's a decent shield, works out nicely. Anyway, finally getting it into a little bit of a pose. Posed up with the high-grade Gundam Revive right there, and if you're wondering where the backpack is, so am I. If you've ever seen in any of my videos, when I took its backpack off to do whatever the hell that I did, probably a backpack fashion show or something like that, I don't know where I put it, and it's been missing for years. Anyway, once you actually get the claw on, it does look pretty cool. It's cool for nice attacking poses like so, like assaulting the RX-78-2 right up in its face, like this. Overall, this kit poses nicely, and speaking of posing, let's get right on into the articulation. Alright, so jumping now into the articulation and the usual kind of commentary in the overall build. So when it comes to these kits, they're not quite as solid as Gunpla. Like I mentioned, the hips are a bit wiggly like that. There's a kind of thing that happens a lot when you move the limbs, the kind of joints tend to end up splitting, and this always can be a little bit irritating, especially when you're really close to finishing off a pose. It fucking falls off, and then you're like, blah, 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 blah. But besides that, it usually holds together fairly decently well. Anyway, testing out the normal pose, and here we go. Let's do it in real time. So there we go. Bending it down like so. Swinging in that old ankle. Up the arms. Bring them down and forward. I thought we'd get a little bit better of a side crunch than that. The shoulders can be a little bit irritating at times too, but that's been the same since the very first Alto kit. Actually, while that's off, there is a really nice design in here which allows this section to pivot upwards, which is really nice. Anyway, there we go. Get that pivot upwards, bringing down that head. And there we go. There it is in the usual pose. So as you can see, it pulls it off ever so nicely. The articulation in here is quite nice. Could be a little bit better, I suppose. The upward movement at the ankle means it can't get too low down into the lunge, but overall, not bad at all. Again, really, it is just the lower leg that is a little bit awkward. If you could get a little bit more toe movement upwards, it could get lower down into the lunge, but this won't be an issue up in the air. So up in the air, it will pull off nicer poses, and I suppose one thing that is worth mentioning, even though I've mentioned it twice already, is you can see into the joints when the knees are bent. Not the most premium looking thing around, but again, this is an, well, $9 to $13 kit right here. It's a starter kit, it's simple, and you know what it does well. So finally now, just a little bit of a commentary on this kit's overall compatibility. Of course, it's going to be compatible with most of your 30-minute missions kits. Now, I don't have any of mine handy right now. They're all put away into deep storage because I don't really review them as much as I used to, which I kind of wish I did because I love these kits to bits. Well, anyway, we do have plenty of 3mm attachment points in the thighs, in the side of the calves, the nice moving one in the forearms, which is very impressive, but it is, I guess, not having as many of these as you'd normally see on a kit, which is kind of nice to a degree because it does kind of make it look a little bit more like an actual mecha. There's some on the rear of the thighs and some on the back of the shoulders too, probably for the sold separately full armor expansion for this kit right here. That is this right here, and actually taking a look at this and actually taking a look at what this looks like, I can see the kit this is sort of based on. It seems to be heavily based on, I'm guessing, the Estrella from Gundam 00, because with these little parts attached on, it definitely looks like the more armored up variants of the Estrella, specifically the red version. Again, that looks nice. Almost like an Avalanche Exia kind of feel without the leg options. Also, these weapons right here definitely look like proto-GN swords. Finally then, flipping around to the back, we do have these 3 little attachment points right here. These aren't like typical gunpla ones, but if you do, before I actually take that off, we do have a C-clip attachment here, C-clip attachments as well at the side skirtings. So that is a very nice touch. But yeah, if you do whip this bit off back here, we do have the standard Gundam attachment points. So I'm just going to try it out with the usual backpack I always tend to reach for, and that is the Aerial Rebuilds backpack. This to me kind of has a 30-minute missions kind of look to it because of the overall geometric squared off shape. So I guess it would suit. Color-wise, not so much because it is in blue and yellow. Also, there is a little bit of a lip sticking out in the bottom of this, so I'm not sure exactly how that will affect its attachment or not. And in the end, there we go. There it is, popped off, or should I say popped on, looking like an absolute beautiful butterfly. Not too bad, that looks cool. That definitely elevates it to the next level, looking extremely cool. And in this light, the colors almost match. That right there is pretty damn cool. So anyway, that right there is it for the review of the 30-minute missions IGLIGHT, and all I can say is whether you've been building 30-minute missions for years or you're new to this particular line of model kits, this is an absolutely perfect kit all round. Compared to a lot of the standard kits that I would have built before, I feel the design in this one is a little bit more realized. It looks a little bit more mecha than kind of just an amalgamation of bits or an overly simplistic looking robot. This just looks absolutely dynamic out of box. The coloring is nice, the overall design is insanely good, and it really has cut back a little bit on a lot of those 3mm hard points around the front, head, and shoulders, so it does look a little bit more actual mech than kind of just a little bit of a model kit toy. If you've never built one of these kits before, this is a great place to start. You don't need tools, you don't need anything. It's between $8 to $13 depending on where you get it, and all you have to do is rip it off the runners, attach it together, and it's just a perfect little model kit out of box. Then you can just start getting some option sets, some more kits, and slapping them together to just get experimental. This line is essentially Mecha Lego. All the parts you can use whatever way you want. This kit is just the start. Where you go from here is absolutely only limited by your imagination. Anyway, this kit I wouldn't have if it wasn't for those awesome people over at HobbyLink Japan. As always, make sure to come back for more Mecha model kit reviews, and I'll see you next time. As always, this video right here and every single video I make would not be possible without each and every one of you guys who watches this video, and special thanks at the end of this video right here to those who support on the channel memberships as well as over on Patreon, including Caleb Engelhart, Joe, OG59061, Scotty Thomas, and Simon.